The sterile smell of disinfectant filled the maternity ward as Marina stood by the window, holding her newborn son close to her chest. Outside, snow fell silently, but inside the room the air was heavy with tension. She had imagined this moment so differently. Her first child, warmth, support, family gathered in quiet joy. Instead, she faced the sharp eyes and rigid posture of her mother-in-law, Valentina, who stood near the door as if guarding an exit rather than celebrating a beginning. "You can't stay here," Valentina said coldly, her voice cutting through the soft hum of hospital machines. "You've done what you came to do. The child is born. Now it's time for you to leave." Marina felt her throat tighten. "Leave? I just gave birth yesterday. This is the maternity ward." Valentina scoffed. "Don't play innocent. You know exactly what I mean. My son doesn't need you here causing scenes. I'll take care of my grandson. She waved her hand dismissively, "you're no longer necessary." Tears welled in Marina's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. For months, she had endured subtle insults, sharp remarks, and constant reminders that she was not good enough for Valentina's only son. Still, she never imagined being pushed out of the hospital like an unwanted visitor. "You have no right," Marina whispered, tightening her hold on the baby. "Oh, I have every right," Valentina snapped. "This family existed long before you, and it will exist long after. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Pack your things." The door suddenly opened behind Valentina. A nurse peeked in, sensing the tension, but Valentina shot her a look so fierce that the nurse quietly withdrew. Marina felt utterly alone. Her husband, Alexei, hadn't answered her calls since the argument the night before. Exhaustion pressed down on her like a weight, and for a brief, terrifying moment, she wondered if Valentina would actually succeed. Then, footsteps echoed in the hallway, firm, unhurried, unmistakably confident. Valentina turned, irritation already etched on her face, ready to scold whoever dared interrupt her authority. But the words died in her throat. A tall man in a dark coat stood in the doorway, his presence commanding immediate attention. His eyes moved from Valentina to Marina, then to the baby in her arms. Something shifted in his expression, concern, then resolve. "What's going on here?" he asked calmly. Valentina's face drained of color. This is a family matter," she stammered. "You shouldn't be here." "I think I should," the man replied. "Especially if someone is trying to throw a new mother out of the hospital." Marina stared at him in disbelief. "Papa," she whispered. It was her father, Sergei. She hadn't expected him, she hadn't even told him she was in labor yet. Seeing him there, solid and real, broke the dam she had been holding back. Tears streamed down her face as he crossed the room and gently kissed her forehead. "I came as soon as I heard," he said softly. "And I'm glad I did." Valentina straightened, trying to recover her composure. "This is unnecessary drama. Marina is emotional. I was simply suggesting what's best for the child." Sergei turned to her, his gaze steady and unyielding. "What's best for the child is his mother. And you will not disrespect my daughter in front of me." Valentina opened her mouth to protest, but no sound came out. She had always been confident, domineering, certain that everyone would bend to her will. Now, faced with Sergei's quiet authority, she seemed suddenly small. "This hospital is not your property," Sergei continued. "You don't get to decide who stays and who leaves. And if you ever speak to Marina like that again, we'll have a very different conversation, one involving lawyers." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Valentina's lips trembled, but she couldn't find a response. She glanced at the baby, then back at Sergei, and finally looked away. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. The door closed behind her, and for the first time since the birth, the room felt warm. Marina let out a shaky breath. I thought she was going to take him from me." Sergei sat beside her and placed a hand over hers. "No one will take your child. Not while I'm alive." Later that evening, as Marina rested, the television in the corner of the room played quietly. A talk show was on, the hosts engaged in a heated discussion. Marina wasn't really listening until raised voices cut through her thoughts. On the screen, Blake Shelton sat stiffly in his chair as Joy Behar leaned forward, her tone sharp. The argument escalated quickly, interruptions, pointed remarks, visible frustration. Suddenly, Blake stood up. This is pointless, he said firmly. I didn't come here to be attacked. Security moved in as the audience gasped. Joy Behar tried to speak, but Blake was already walking off the set. Moments later, the announcer's voice awkwardly explained that the segment was ending early due to creative differences. Marina watched, surprised by how strongly the scene resonated with her. Blake's refusal to stay where he was disrespected mirrored what she had just endured. Sometimes, walking away, or being forced out, wasn't weakness but a line drawn in the sand. Sergei noticed her watching. You okay? She nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I finally understand something. What's that? Marina looked down at her son, who slept peacefully, unaware of the conflict surrounding him. Some people think they can decide your place for you. Tell you where you belong, where you should go. But they're wrong. Sergei smiled faintly. Exactly. Not every station is meant for us. And when someone tells you to get off the train, sometimes it's because they're heading to the wrong destination themselves. Marina felt a quiet strength settle inside her. The fear was still there, and the future was uncertain, but she was no longer powerless. She wasn't a guest in her own life, and no one, no matter how loud or influential, had the right to push her aside. As the snow continued to fall outside the hospital window, Marina held her child a little closer, knowing that whatever battles lay ahead, she would not face them alone. The morning light crept through the narrow hospital window, pale and uncertain, much like Marina felt as she lay in her bed with her newborn son beside her. Her body ached, her thoughts were tangled, and the world seemed fragile, balanced on a thin thread between joy and fear. She listened to the steady breathing of her baby and tried to memorize every sound, every tiny movement, as if doing so could protect him from everything waiting beyond the walls of the maternity ward. The door opened abruptly, shattering the quiet. Valentina, her mother-in-law, entered without knocking, her expression tight and determined. She surveyed the room with a critical eye, as though searching for flaws that confirmed her long-held judgments. So, Valentina said, folding her arms, you're still here. Marina lifted her head slowly. Of course I am. I gave birth 2 days ago. Valentina clicked her tongue in disapproval. Hospitals are not hotels. You've stayed long enough. The baby is healthy. It's time you moved on. Marina felt a chill run through her. Moved on, where? Anywhere but here, Valentina replied sharply. My son will come later. I'll take the child home. You need rest, and frankly, you only complicate things. The words struck harder than Marina expected. Complicate things. As if her presence, her very existence, was an inconvenience rather than the reason the child existed at all. She tried to speak, but exhaustion and disbelief tangled her thoughts. You can't separate a mother from her newborn, Marina finally said, her voice trembling but firm. Valentina's eyes narrowed. Don't lecture me. I raised a son. I know what children need. And right now, what this baby needs is stability, not your emotions. Marina's hands clenched the blanket. For months, Valentina had undermined her quietly, comments about her upbringing, her job, her way of speaking. Marina had swallowed it all for the sake of peace. But now, with her child involved, the pain cut deeper. This is my child, Marina said. You don't get to decide. Valentina stepped closer, lowering her voice. Listen carefully. You think you have power because you gave birth. Power belongs to those who can provide, who can protect. My family has resources. You don't. So don't make a scene you'll regret. Before Marina could respond, the door opened again. This time, the atmosphere changed instantly. A man in a dark jacket stood at the threshold, his posture calm but commanding. His gaze took in the scene in seconds. Is there a problem here? He asked. Valentina turned sharply, irritation ready on her lips, then froze. Her confidence vanished as recognition dawned. Sergei, she whispered. Marina's heart skipped. Dad. Sergei stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He looked at Marina, then at his grandson, and his expression softened. But when he turned back to Valentina, his face hardened. I heard someone was trying to remove my daughter from a maternity ward, he said evenly. Care to explain? Valentina straightened her shoulders, attempting to regain control. This is a misunderstanding. Marina is tired. I was offering help. Sergei raised an eyebrow. By telling her to leave her own child. Valentina opened her mouth, but no justification came out. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. You don't intimidate my daughter, Sergei continued. Not today. Not ever. If you have concerns, you address them respectfully. Otherwise, you leave. For the first time, Valentina seemed unsure. She glanced at Marina, then away. Without another word, she turned and exited the room, the sharp sound of her steps echoing down the corridor. Marina exhaled, her whole body shaking. I didn't call you, she said softly. I know, Sergei replied, pulling a chair closer. A nurse recognized my name on your emergency contact list. She thought I should be here. Tears slid down Marina's cheeks. I was so scared. Sergei took her hand gently. Fear doesn't mean weakness. It means something precious is at stake. Later that day, the hospital room felt different, lighter, safer. Marina slept while Sergei watched over the baby, marveling at how such a small being could shift the balance of power in an entire family. In the evening, the television flickered on. A daytime talk show filled the room with chatter and applause. Marina half listened until the conversation turned sharp. Voices overlapped. Tension rose. On screen, Blake Shelton sat across from Joy Behar, his jaw tight. The exchange grew heated, sarcasm replacing humor, respect giving way to provocation. I'm done with this, Blake said suddenly, standing up. This isn't a conversation. The audience gasped as he walked off the set. The hosts looked stunned. Moments later, the show cut to commercial. Marina watched in silence. The scene lingered in her mind long after the screen went dark. Sergei noticed her expression. What are you thinking? That sometimes, Marina said slowly, people push you until they expect you to disappear. And when you don't, when you stand up or walk away, they act shocked. Sergei nodded. Control only works when we accept it. That night, Alexei finally came. He stood awkwardly by the door, guilt written across his face. He looked from Marina to the baby and swallowed hard. My mother told me you were causing trouble, he said quietly. Marina met his eyes. And you believed her? He hesitated. I didn't know what to believe. Sergei stood up. Then learn. Because your wife and child are not rumors. They are your responsibility. Alexei nodded, shamefaced. I'm sorry, he whispered to Marina. She studied him for a long moment, then looked down at her son. This is not about apologies, she said. It's about choices. And from now on, I won't let anyone choose for me. Alexei stepped closer. I want to do better. Marina didn't answer right away. She knew trust would not return instantly. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer the woman who could be pushed out of a room, a hospital, or a life. As the lights dimmed and the ward grew quiet, Marina held her baby and felt a steady certainty take root within her. She had been told, in so many ways, that she was heading to the wrong station, that her journey was a mistake. Now she knew the truth. She was exactly where she needed to be, and anyone who tried to force her off would be the one left behind.